Stanley Banks survived the wedding, but can he now survive being a grandfather? This is Father's Little Dividend.
Welcome back to another episode of the Matinee with Forgotten Cinema. I am your host, Mike Field. This is Mike Butler. Say hi, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Not a good start. Today we are doing Father's Little Dividend, the sequel to Father of the Bride. And before we get into our thoughts, let's get into a quick synopsis, and that is going to be my turn today. A year after dealing with a surprise engagement in Father of the Bride, Stanley Banks and his wife Ellie are in for another shock when they find their daughter Kay is now pregnant. Not ready to be a grandfather, Stanley keeps quiet while everyone else fawns over the mother-to-be and bothers her about baby names and nursery decorations. Ironically, his silence makes him the person Kay turns to the most for help, which in turn helps him. All right, Mike, so let's I can give a little, try to do a little facts and then jump into like the movie itself.
Sure.
All right, so this movie's like 82 minutes long and not a long one.
It's very short, yeah.
It made a total of $4.6 million, which is pretty good. Directed by Vincente Minnelli. I hope I said that name right. I think I did. Directed in American Paris. Written by Albert Hackett, Francis Goodrich, known for The Thin Man and Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. They are a writing duo. Only other credit I wanted to bring up here was it was edited by Ferris Webster, who has edited one of the movies I really like, and that's The Great Escape. But we're not talking about The Great Escape. We're talking about Father's Little Dividend. Mike, start us off. What did you like about it?
I really enjoyed the character of Stanley Banks. I think Spencer Tracy's Stanley Banks is really relatable. I think he's almost like a timeless character. The way he acts, the way he behaves, his thoughts, his opinions are timeless. His attitude is kind of timeless. He doesn't try to play like any kind of style. Like, you know how sometimes you can overact or play a certain time period. Even people in the 40s sometimes played characters that were certainly stuck in the 40s, stuck in the 30s, stuck in the 50s. Stanley Banks is kind of just a guy, even in the 50s. Like, you can watch it today and be like, that's a guy. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed that about him. I also think he's got a different way of looking about it than a typical Hollywood film of, I don't want to be a grandfather. I don't want this kid. I don't want any of this. I just want to be myself.
First he steals my daughter, then he makes me a grandpa.
Yeah, it's greedy. It's kind of selfish, but I think we all have those thoughts. And I like that he kind of embodies that. It's very un-Hollywood kind of fatherly or grandfatherly kind of an attitude.
He's a bit of a curmudgeon in the beginning in terms of when he discovers what's happening.
Right.
Because it starts off where he has the worst briefcase flip I've ever seen when he walks into his house and he's like, do, and like, you didn't catch that. But he walks into the house and then he finds out that they find out the big news. He's all excited. He wants to travel. Him and his wife are going to finally get out.
Yeah.
Ellie played by JOAN BENNETT, and they're going to get out and they're going to go do a bunch of stuff. And then they find out that Kay is pregnant and everyone's celebrating. He's just like, Meh. So,
I wanted to go to Hawaii.
Right. He can't hide his emotions, but it's easy to look at that and be like, oh, he's such a curmudgeon, but it's also, which I just said, but it's genuine.
It is. It's relatable.
Yeah, it's a genuine experience. Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is a sequel to the original Father of the Bride.
Right.
And this is the first time they did a sequel to a studio sequel, pretty much like a successful, like warranted sequel. Because obviously you would have unauthorized sequels back in the day. You'd have sequels to movies that starred completely different actors and they had nothing to do with the movie, but they were trying to capitalize on the success of the first
right film. Or you'd have serials and stuff like that,
right.
But it's different than a sequel.
So this was almost groundbreaking in terms of it coming to the screen, bringing the whole cast back. They shot this movie in 22 days, which for now is like, oh my goodness. But back then it's probably just set upon set. So
exactly. It's very contained. It's 5 locations, maybe at most.
It's a house. Now, let me quick question on that house. We're talking Father of the Bride, and people maybe of our age might remember, or even older, would remember that they remade this movie with Steve Martin.
Right.
Is it the same house? Because it looked like the same house. I'm sure it's not.
They probably went for something that was very similar. I don't think it's the same.
But it looked like it.
But it looks very similar.
But back to what I was talking about in terms of 22 days. And I talked about how Vincente Minnelli did in American Paris. This film was shot in between during the pre-production of An American Paris when they waited because they had to build sets for An American Paris. And that took like 4 weeks. So while the sets were being built for that movie, he shot this film which is pretty fantastic. I like that note. That's I always like those little behind the scene notes.
Well, this film doesn't have as much pre-production needs.
Mhm.
It's simple. You got your cast already. They already know their characters. Bing, bam, boom. It's hour 22. Who knows how long the script was?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you just get this done in between. It doesn't require as much to start as American in Paris.
Right. Speaking of cast, I didn't even know Elizabeth Taylor was in this film. This is one of her earlier films. She's on her way. This isn't a movie that made her. She is on her way.
Right.
She has done stuff. But I, being somebody of my age, I know Elizabeth Taylor from, the older stuff. Cleopatra is probably the oldest I would
That's
go.
what she's most, yeah.
But in terms of after that, I know her from other things. And this is really stupid to say, but she is really good in this film. She is when she's breaking down and she's breaking down to her father and how,
right.
It's not overly melodramatic. It's not of that time frame in terms of how women would get upset or how you.
Oh, they'd have emotion. A certain hysterics.
It wasn't that at all. To use the same word we use when we're describing Spencer Tracy's acting in this, it's genuine. I thought she was really good in this film.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think she's really good. I also think that Don Taylor does a great job as Buckley. I think the two of them, Kay and Buckley's relationship, is a great kind of anchor to this film. Obviously, you're following Stanley, but I think Kay and Buckley are also very timeless, very kind of genuine in terms of their relationship. They're not like, oh, darling, oh, this. They have problems. They have marital issues. She kicks them out. How often does it happen? Oh, a couple times. I love the scene when Buckley is untying Kay's shoes and he's telling Stanley she has to have her milk at this point. She's supposed to walk 6 miles a day. We walk once at night, once during the day. And I think that's a great scene, his care for her.
It's funny because he takes care of her. And in this movie, there's a comment, there's a quote that Stanley says to his wife, or talks about let me be a man, that kind of thing. Let men be men, that kind of, he has that, there's that sense in this movie. But when you watch the movie and you watch the relationship between Stanley and Ellie, it is very clear that Stanley would be lost without Ellie, without his wife, without the women in his life.
Oh, sure.
And so even though that he is saying these things, and even he says it in narration, even though he's talking like that, he's lying to himself. And he's kind of just fooling himself because he is nowhere without the women in his life, which is again a testament to the writing in the movie and to the way the movie's presented, which I appreciate as well.
Sure, yeah, he genuinely loves and cares for his wife. He wants to spend time with her. It's not just you're the woman, I'm going to go out to the lodge and spend time with the guys. He wants to. He wants that kind of Fred Flintstone kind of attitude.
Now I've got Happy Days in my mind.
It's not that kind of attitude, which was very common in films of the 50s. The wife is just there to provide, food on the table and stuff like that. But he actually wants to spend time with his wife. He wants to make sure his daughter has a good life, but also wants to get out of her way, and let her make the decisions. It's not domineering. It's not he obviously doesn't want his wife to dote over the grandchild because he wants to spend more time with his wife.
Right. And you don't have to watch Father of the Bride to watch Father's Little Dividend. You could watch them in reverse. You can watch this and the other one. So we highly recommend it. Mike, give them a little bit of brief, who we are. Why are these two guys talking about Father's Little Dividend to them? Who are we?
Well, I was born in a small town. We are Forgotten Cinema, a podcast about forgotten films that seem to be forgotten by audiences, whether it be because a more popular movie was released at the same time or the audience simply forgot about it after it came out. You can find our podcast anywhere podcasts are available: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff, or check out more of the Matinee. Where can they find us?
You can find the Matinee in the Hollywood Canteen section on the Best Classics Ever website. We are there. We've got tons of other movies that we talk about. So hopefully this little thing right here, this little dialogue back and forth helped you figure out, hey, man, check out Father's Little Dividend. We recommend it. Go watch a young Elizabeth Taylor shine. Go watch Spencer Tracy. Just be Spencer Tracy and just kind of just enjoy the film and hopefully stay on Best Classics Ever because they have a ton of other things that you can get into. A lot of other movies that are definitely worth taking another look at. But I got nothing else. So Mike, start us off. Take us away.
I'm Mike Butler.
I'm Mike Field.
And this has been the Matinee, brought to you by Best Classics Ever.